Everyone, so today we'll look at this question, longest substring with at most two distinct characters. Given a string S, return the length of the longest substring that contains at most two distinct characters. So keep in mind we're using substring here, which is a contiguous, non-empty sequence of characters within the string. So it is not subsequence. We need to really make a note here. And look at example first. S ECE output is 3. Explanation is the substring is ECE with which its length is 3. So yeah, I mean it's pretty straightforward. ECE, right? Only two distinct characters, and you can't really extend to more. If you add B or A, then it will have less than 3. And the second example is CCAA So the output is 5. Why? Because AABBB, the length is 5. You may ask, can we use CCBBB? Well, it's no. The answer is no because it's not a substring. It's a subsequence, but not a substring. So for substring, yes, only AABBB. Only this works. All right. So how can we approach these questions, right? So I would say for this question, we'll probably use 2 pointers. So why 2 pointers? So we want to have the first pointer that is iterating from the beginning to the end, and another pointer following. So it checks if, at this step, the current intervals between the 2 pointers still has like 2 distinct characters. And if yes, if the answer is yes, then we update the length, right? So we compare the current length with the existing longest length. And if it's not the case, which means it has more than two distinct characters, meaning 3 or 4, then we want to update our left pointers to the right. So the left pointers go right, and we shorten the length of our substring until the point that we satisfy the condition that we only contain two distinct characters in our substring. I know it's a little bit complicated, but let's just look at the example. So here, this first pointer is going from left to right, and then CC, right, at this point, no problem. And A, okay, we update A into our dictionary. We also need to maintain a dictionary at some point. So we update A inside, and the next step, right? So we encounter B. So we check in our dictionary, or let's say a hash map or something like that. Do we have more than two distinct characters already? The answer is yes. So we don't want to update B into the substring because that's going to be 3 distinct characters. So if that's the case, then we want to move the left pointers. So we move to the right, C, another C, right? And then go to A. So now at this point, we only have 2 distinct characters in the substring. So the condition satisfied. So we can going forward to update our right pointers. All right, so that's the basic idea. And there are several things that we should do before everything. It is import from collections, import default dict. Why? Because we need to update the dictionary values. So if let's say there is like a value that we want to update, but it does not exist, then we need to like have more lines or more just a little bit more complicated syntax to deal with that. But since we are using default dict, then we don't really need to handle that. Okay, so the initialized variables, one should be left pointers, which is going to be 0, and also we need to have a char map is equal to default dict, and the value is an integer since it's the count. Okay, what about the result, right? The result initialized as 0 as well. So now we have a for loop for I, well, in this case, we'll say for right. And well, we want to do enumerate, so that's easier to deal with in our syntax. So for right and also char in enumerate s, right? Okay, so um, what do we want to do? We want to update the char map, right? So char map at what? So char map at char has to plus 1 because we are going to the we are going right? So when we're exploring a new value, or let's no, actually a new letter, a new char, we want to update the map. Okay, so update 1. Now what's the next step? It is to check if the current substring only contains 2 distinct characters, right? So while left, well, actually, what's the condition? So the length of char map is greater than 2, right? We don't want to have more than 2 distinct characters. So if that's the case, then we need to check what's the okay. Firstly, we need to see what's the left letters, right? What's the letters on the left side? So left char is equal to as an index of left. And now we want to update the dictionary. So char map of left char should be updated -1. Okay, what's the next step? So if char map at left char is equal to 0, which means we moved, or there's like no leftovers in our substring, then what we're gonna do is to delete the char map of left char, right? Okay, and also we need to update the left pointers for each iterations. And lastly, we're gonna do is for each loop, we want to update the result, right? So result and right minus left plus 1. So finally, we want to return the result. Okay, let's check. Is there any problems? Okay, good. Seems accepted. Let's submit. All right, accept. So what's the running time for this? Actually, the running time is actually a big O of n, because for each like right pointers, we only access each characters once, and for the left pointers, at most, in the worst case, we also like went through each characters once. And for the space, it is actually a constant time, which means it's big of 1 because we only have like several variables to store, the current conditions, the current count, right? And also the positions, the index. So overall, it's going to be rounding time a big O of n and a space time of big O of 1. Thank